in the sort of recent wake and farrago around branding, the latest victims are Cracker Barrel, who changed their branding, received some ire, even from the president, and have now reversed it. Look, they changed from that Cracker Barrel, a kidney bean with a man leaning against it, to a sort of a more streamlined piece of branding. I imagine it's probably because of online marketing. I imagine was what was the original, the origin of that decision. Matt von Swall says you disappointed the entire country. Now, it really amazes me actually how I was going to say how much the strength of emotion around branding and logos, because the let's face it, the function of a business is to generate revenue, and their branding is just to make their particular business identifiable, as well as to elicit certain emotions that make their product or service sell better. Now, why do you think it is, Sage, that we're finding ourselves allocating such strong tribal emotion to corporate decisions?
Because it's unnecessary. And that apparently his name is Uncle Herschel, the
Mm.
one leaning against the barrel. And it's obviously Cracker Barrel, very country, very Southern. And then you have an executive team of, I think, 13 women who come and say, we need to modernize this. We need to change it and clean it up and, you know, make it seem more inclusive almost, because that country vibe isn't as appealing to people in New York City, apparently. I think sometimes it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are you touching something that has been iconic really since 1969? 55 years and going strong. And I know that every time I've gotten on the road and traveled in most parts of the country, that's the only time I ever had Cracker Barrel. They're along major highways across the country, and it's fun and it's comforting and it's soul food. And you go and you play the games and you get little tchotchkes that you don't need. Like, why mess with it? And I think that that's why people said, we're up in arms over it. Is it just a logo? Yes, but to many, it's about their childhood and driving in the back of a station wagon and pulling up at Cracker Barrel. It was a treat. So it didn't ruin my day, but it was just another one of those things where we say, why? Why? Just leave it. Have you been inside of one, Russell?
I have never, willingly or inadvertently, entered a Cracker Barrel, Sage, and for a while didn't know what it meant. Now I understand what now that I've learned a little bit more about Uncle Herschel and his traditions and his ways and his philosophy. I get it a little more, but really is sort of the macro underlying argument is change versus progress, which is an argument that's sort of playing out in every cultural arena.
That you're so right. Change versus progress. And I think it'd be different. Like you saw on the pancake mix, Aunt Jemima, where all of a sudden that went from the one that I always bought for my kids until I started making it from scratch. And it just went from what was there to, well, now it's racist. Actually, not necessarily. I liken it a little bit to the Washington Commanders NFL football team. That's what they call it now, after can't call it Washington Redskins because that's offensive too. And you actually had people who it was apparently named after all those years ago coming out recently saying, you never even asked me if it offended me. And actually, I took it as a compliment. So I think when all these fancy people with titles up in their C-suites just come up with these ideas, sometimes I wonder, are they doing it just to be able to say, I did this, and to remain or become relevant instead of leaving something alone that actually stands for something good? Cracker Barrel is Americana. Cracker Barrel is just simple. In the South, primarily, you go in and you know what you're going to get. The menu is the same around the country. So sometimes change for change's sake is not necessary. And I love the fact, forgive me for loving it, that they lost about $100 million. I mean, the stock dropped significantly. So as we now know, the CEO has come out and released a statement and changed it, saying, never mind, we're going to go back to all of it. It's amazing what happens when money starts to leave, starts to fall by the wayside, and then all of a sudden people revert back. I like that they listened, though. Let's give them credit, right? They listened to what the public was saying and they went back to it.